It was the 10th of December 2020. And I'd laid out my daughter's Christmas jumper that she was going to wear for the following day at school, because it was like Christmas Day jumper thing. So I opened my door and then I'm just hit with this thick black smoke, and I could see the stairs had already started to burn away. I'm trying to get into her door and I can't open it, and I'm literally screaming back at her saying I'm going to go and get help.
I'm Ollie Hall-Green and I'm the founder and host of Shapes of Resilience. In this podcast, we explore the raw, unfiltered stories of those who refused to give up, turning adversity into strength, setbacks into lessons, and pain into purpose. Through these inspiring stories, we can learn and find resilience in our own lives every single day, because true growth isn't found in comfort. This podcast discusses sensitive topics including trauma, suicide, loss, mental health, and illnesses. Some conversations may be distressing, so please take care whilst listening. So, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you very much.
So today I'm joined by Jade Horton, and Jade is someone that I connected with recently. Again, someone that we are drawn together with, having attended the Wellness Way Festival last month. And it's crazy, we were just chatting then, the amount of people that I've connected with through that event is just beyond belief. And I didn't realise that just something as simple as going to an event on your own with an open mind to connect with new people that are very like-minded, it just draws people together. And it's so evident now from the following that I'm starting to pick up from people that have seen the podcast that I've put out with the podcast that I did whilst I was there. And it's just everything. It's just so, I didn't know what I was hoping to achieve when I started this podcast, but it's definitely those connections. And that's why I'm so pleased that we've connected and that you've joined me this evening to share your story. I was lucky enough to sit and listen to your story firsthand at the event, and it's a very touching story. It's very moving, and it gives a lot of hope, I think, to a lot of people that go through very traumatic things that maybe don't see that there is hope and that there is actually a way of moving forward with your life and still having those happy moments and having a purposeful life where you're able to use your experiences to actually help others through your practices. So Jade is an angelic Reiki master. As you can see behind her, she's got a holistic practice, which we're going to hear about. And we're going to start off by welcoming Jade and saying thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, it's so nice to have this conversation with you. I know we had it penciled in for a couple of weeks ago, and we both had a headache.
Yeah.
And I was so pleased. It was one of those where I think you were reluctant to cancel, and I was the same. But then when you sent through the message saying you had a headache, I was so relieved because I had a headache as well. And it just shows, and we were chatting then, that the importance of only doing things like this when you're in the right headspace to do it. It's very, very important. Yeah. So how are you feeling at the moment, Jade?
I'm good. I am good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a busy day. I've just had a bit of gardening. So I'm connected with a bit of nature, which is always nice before something like this, because I always feel really nervous going into these conversations just because it matters to me and I don't want to let myself down and let the guests down. And something that I've done recently is that I don't have a list of questions. So I want this to be conversational, which can go one of two ways.
It's natural.
Yeah. So let's get into your story then. So I know that there's a significant date in your life, which is the 10th of December, 2020.
Yeah.
So if you're happy, and I don't know if you have a certain way that you prefer to share your story, and if that's the case, then by all means go ahead and do that. But I didn't know if you were happy to talk to us about life pre that date and what that looked like for you.
Yeah. I'll go right back to my childhood, because there is a lot over these 40 years of my whole life that has made a massive impact. And basically, as a child, I had two violent, abusive, alcoholic parents. Both were very narcissistic. My father passed away when I was 21. My mother still is alive, but I don't speak to her now. I made that choice not to speak to her in 2021. but I'll come to that in a minute. So living in a household that is so volatile is terrifying for a child. And I'm one of 6 children. And me and my younger brother, we would say we probably got it the worst because my father was an alcoholic before my mother met him. Whereas my 4 elder siblings, their father wasn't like that. So it was like treading on eggshells all the time, going to school, trying to pretend that your life is okay, and worrying if you ever had a friend round, how were they going to behave? Were you going to turn up home and they could be drunk, or would they be scrapping with each other? I would see my father attack my mother quite a lot as a young child. I remember things from the age of about 4 to 5. That's the earliest. And they have stayed with me. And there's a few things that I have blocked out because your brain can only take so much, can't it? Before it just gets too much. So as the years gone by, we have actually reminded each other of what has happened because my younger brother's forgotten things, I've forgotten things. And it's about being a big unit together as a family now because it's actually made us stronger eventually. So I mean, there's a few that I will mention. So there was one time that my father came home very drunk. Me and my younger brother were in bed. I then hear a lot of commotion. My mother comes running upstairs, gets us out of bed. I'm in my 90, he's in his pajamas. And she says, we've got to go. So we've got no shoes on. We literally run out of the house because he's just literally smashing everything up. And we get halfway up the road because my nan didn't live too far. So we were going to her place. And I said, my feet really hurt. So we ended up going back to grab some shoes. Luckily, she got them before he did anything. And we got to my nan's house, and it's always stayed with me because I always used to go to ballet on a Saturday morning. And I remember being quite upset that I couldn't go because I didn't have my things. I didn't know what was going to happen now that we're at my nan's. And that was terrifying because it's the sort of things you see in movies, isn't it? You never really expect anybody to go through that, but there is plenty of people in the world that have had a lot of abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse in their lives. And I've had all of them. Trying to think of others. There's just so many. And I am actually starting to write a book about my life because I do feel that it's going to help people, but it's going to take years to get this published because there's just so much information that I need to share. And doing podcasts as well have enabled people to sort of reach out and say, do you know what you've said really resonates with me, or I know where to go for help now. So it's about being brave enough to share it because there was a lot of guilt, nervousness about speaking about these sort of things because you don't know what sort of backlash you might going to get. You go through all sorts, you go through anger as well. And that's something that I don't have stored in my body for very long because it can make you really, really poorly. So yeah, it's been a massive roller coaster over my life. But when I get to my adulthood, because I was in a household with a lot of domestic abuse, you then start to become quite resilient. You then get used to that. So when you go into adulthood, you do statistically tend to pick partners that are very similar to your father. And that's exactly what I did. So I chose to have 2 children with this person, and it was a very rocky 7-year relationship, and it was a very difficult 7 years of my life. It was really hard because when he got sentenced for the armed robbery, we had just had our daughter Sienna. She was 8 weeks old when he got sent away. And I was also on maternity leave being a prison officer. So that was really embarrassing for me to have to ring my work and say, this is what's happened. I'm then worrying that I'm going to lose my job. And they said, we don't employ him, we employ you, Jade. So that is not an issue. So that was a massive relief. But for the next 3.5 years, I was a single parent. And that's not what my life wanted to look like. And because I had such a really awful childhood, I wanted to be a full unit of a mother and a father with a child or children in a household that's loving and nurturing. So yeah, it was really hard because I then saw the other side of what visitors feel like when they have to go in and get searched all the time, and then feeling like I'm going to get recognised. And there was a few odd looks where because Peterborough Prison is quite a big prison and we got quite a lot of different prisoners all over the UK. So he wasn't too far really from there. And they eventually go to like Cat D prisons. So I'd get looks and they used to like think, I know you, but I can't place you. Otherwise they would say something, but I knew instantly. And I just sort of put my head down because I didn't want the repercussions of that when I did eventually go back to work, but it did eventually leak out. But I was okay with that. And I reported it and everything. But moving on from him, I then had my son, Isaac, with him, sorry. And I then got rid of him, not Isaac, got rid of his father in the same year that I had him because the abuse was getting worse. He also had a prostitute in my home when I was in hospital with Isaac when I gave birth to him. That was about 3 days later, I found out. So I thought, what can I do to provide for my children? So I set up a cleaning business and I took my son to work from 3 weeks old everywhere because I couldn't afford the fees at the time for nursery. So I built up money, and then in that same year, in the October, I then said, I can't do this anymore. He didn't like it, obviously, and no breakup is great, is it, to be honest?
No.
But no, it really isn't. And it is sad for everybody, and it's also sad for my children because obviously they love their father. But my daughter, because she was older, understood why and saw some things as well. And eventually she was not even interested in seeing her father. She wouldn't even come to the door when he come round because she was too clued on. I never badmouthed him in front of my children ever because I don't want to fill their heads with things that children shouldn't hear.
No.
As they get older, and as when you get to an adult, you look back on your childhood, don't you? And you think, right, these are the reasons why this person did this and things like that. So yeah, that was hard. And then I had another relationship with somebody for about 18 months. And then that's when I met the partner that I had when we moved home to the house that caught fire. So this was in St. Neots. I was only in that house for 6 months and it was a 3-story new build house. It was about 11 years old. And I thought, it's a fresh start for me and my children. I'm away from the house where their father knows where I live. I didn't want him to know my address because I'd had a restraining order on him because of his behaviour and threats and things like that. So I kept that a secret because their safety for me was paramount. I came second, and that's always, if ever, I don't know whether you're a parent, but as a parent, you do put your children first. And that's how it
Absolutely.
should be, So, yeah, for 6 months, everything was going fine. And then this fateful day came. So, as you said in the beginning, it was the 10th of December, 2020. And I'd laid out my daughter's Christmas jumper that she was going to wear for the following day at school, because it was like Christmas Day jumper thing. I remember that was a Thursday morning it happened, and I heard my daughter screaming for me, and it was about 7 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, is she having a night terror? What's up with her? So I opened my door, and then I'm just hit with this thick black smoke, and I couldn't really see to start with, and I had to like dip my head down to see below, the smoke. And I could see the stairs had already started to burn away. I'm trying to get into her door and I can't open it. And I'm literally screaming back at her saying, I'm going to go and get help. So I then run back into my bedroom, not thinking to then shut that door, because when you're in a panic, these things don't come to you. It's fight and flight, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I ran to the bedroom window, opened it and literally just screamed until somebody heard me. There was luckily a lady that was, because all the back garden sort of had like an alleyway that people could walk through. So I could see this lady and she could hear me screaming. And she said, have you rang anybody? I said, I can't find my phone yet. So she then rings everybody, literally the police, firefighters, everything, ambulance. And I said, my 2 children in the house and me, because my partner then had literally just gone to work. And when I sort of dipped down again, because of the thick black smoke, I was inhaling it and it was like trailing past me through the window, which was making more of a chimney effect. So I then go back down to the floor to try and breathe. And then I found my phone, and that's when I ring my partner and say, the house is on fire. And that was a massive panic for him because, when you get a phone call like that, you think, What? So he was a floor layer then. So he literally goes to his van, runs to his van, and then gets in and drives all the way back. He's at the front of the house. All I can see at the back is loads of other neighbours that are starting to jump through the fence and the gate. And there must have been about 15, 20 people there just trying to talk to me while I'm still screaming and saying, it's hot, it hurts, because I could feel it all on the back of my legs. Because I just had a zippy up hoodie on. That was it. So I always slept with no clothes on. So I had to put something on, but you don't have time to put a full pair of, pajamas on or trainers or shoes, because you don't have those sort of things in your bedroom. And I'm still hanging out the window. I can hear my daughter still, but I never heard Isaac. And that troubled me, because you've got all these million things running through your head. And then you start hearing other voices. So I could hear then my partner shouting me. Then I could hear two other male voices. I'm not realising whether they're firefighters or somebody else. But then after the aftermath, I then got told that they were two neighbours, really brave neighbours, that went in. Because the firefighters, unfortunately, deemed it too dangerous to go into the house. So there was 5 different counties that came, and all they had to do was stand there and they had to just watch, which must have been heartbreaking for them, because you're trained in a job where you want to help to save lives, but sometimes that can't happen. And because of the vicious fire that it was, it took 6 minutes to take that house. And it's something that I will never live in a 3-story new build ever again, because of the way they're built, and they're very tall and narrow. And I then learned later on that that causes what a chimney effect would be, because the front door opening, the back window of me, it's sucking it in, it's making it travel faster. So yeah, that was that. So I then said, oh, I'm stuck. I can't get out. I cannot get out. The only way that I'm going to get out is this window. So there's all these people shouting things at me, and I then hear nothing. So I then think, somebody's got my children out. They've clearly got my children out. And then I'm going to see either my partner running around to say they're here. And I remember shouting to somebody saying, are my children safe? Someone said yes. So what I did is I got up on that ledge and I literally leapt. I didn't think about how I was going to land, because you don't have time to even think about that. It was a case of, if I don't jump now, I am going to die and my children are not going to have a mother. Or if I attempt to jump, that could still happen, but I also could survive. So I jumped, and it was a 30-foot drop onto concrete. And I landed on my feet and my bottom at the same time, but sort of like to the right side of me. I don't know how that happened, but maybe it was wind, I don't know. When I landed, I felt the extreme pain, but also heard all these crunches of my bones. Didn't know which bones they were at the time, breaking. And then I literally completely zoned out, and I had this, what I would call a near-death experience, because I've had one before. And I felt like there was like a magnet of something pulling me out of my physical body and lifting me up into the air. And it was the most euphoric, beautiful experience that I have ever had in my entire life. I felt like somebody was holding me with the most loving embrace, but also felt really floaty. And all I could see was this white light. That's all I saw. I didn't go all the way through like some people do. Didn't have the tunnel, whereas I did when I was 3. They're all very similar, but they're all very unique at the same time. But I also felt like I wasn't in my physical body, but I felt like I was tingling all over, even though I wasn't there as such. And then I felt this big, like, force again being put back into my body, which I can only say is my soul. And then I took my first breath. But while this was happening, I had my eyes open and I wasn't doing anything. It was like I just wasn't there at all. And then I just remember sort of sitting there with my legs in front of me, and there was bone sticking out, there was blood everywhere. The smell of the smoke, which will always stay with me, because I've learned that smell is the strongest recall to memory. But it's less now. It's not as triggering as it was before. But then all the windows went boom, and all the glass came shattering down. So I had glass sticking in my back. I've still got, I think, bits of glass still in my wrist that it hasn't raised to the surface. But because of that danger, neighbours and my partner then sort of dragged me around the corner onto the side of the road. And then I can see all these other people. So I'm laying there and all I can hear is people literally terrified of what's just happened. And I'm still saying, where are my children? Where are my children? And everybody would just like turn away or like just completely ignore what I've just said. So then I keep saying it. And then eventually my partner, who had hold of my ankles upwards to try and stop the bleeding coming out of my feet, shook his head, he bowed his head and he shook his head and he said, "They've gone, Jade." And I made an animal roar, which has harrowed people since it's happened. I still remember it, just complete despair. And then it sort of hits you, really hits you. And there's nothing you can do about it because they've gone.
Yeah, and as a father myself, it's my worst nightmare, absolute worst nightmare. It goes without saying, as a parent, and any parent listening, I imagine, will be taking a moment to reflect on how it is the most beautiful gift that we're given, and it can be taken away from us, and it is your worst nightmare.
Yeah. And I say to people, tomorrow's never promised, because it isn't. You know, you never know what's going to happen, and your whole life can be gone within minutes. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I was still laying there waiting for the emergency services, the ambulance to come and collect me. But when I'm in the ambulance, I then sort of keep coming in and out of consciousness because of the pain. I think your body starts to knock you out because it's too much. And I remember this thought coming into my head, and I thought, oh my God, is this fire caused by their father? Because it wasn't, to say, but he texted me a message 3 months before and he said, "You'll know when it's burning and I'll happily watch you die, you effing CUNT." And I'm reiterating this to the ambulance people, and they're probably thinking, what on earth is she going on about? And then I remember waking up in hospital. So with that, it was torture every time I woke up, because I'd fall asleep. And when you're asleep, you either have nightmares or you dream, don't you? Or that you can't remember things. And then when you wake up, it's then like, oh my God, where am I? And it's a massive shock. And then
I think when you go through something traumatic as well, there's a period of time after any event where, because it's so raw and so fresh, there's initial thoughts when you wake up, please tell me that was a dream. And how long did that go on for? And does that still happen now?
Yeah, it does sometimes. And there's also a denial process, because I was trying to, when I was compos mentis, I was thinking that my children are just going to walk through that door in a minute. That this hasn't happened. I've just injured my body. They're just going to come, that they are going to come to me. And every day that passed, it got harder, because then my brain started to set in with extreme PTSD. I started to see smoke in the room that I was in, and then it was the panic. I would get the smell. It was literally everything playing right in front of my eyes whilst I was awake. But then it was like that when I fell asleep. So it was a double-edged sword there, because I wanted to go to sleep to try and heal. But at the same time, I didn't want to, because I knew what was going to happen, but also when I woke up. And I didn't know until after I was out of hospital and I read my notes that I was actually resuscitated at one point. So I only inhaled that smoke for about 2.5 minutes. And how we worked that out was from the time that my partner left to go to work, when he came back, when I made that phone call to him, and when I jumped. So that was the 2.5 minute gap there. And adults have bigger lungs. Children have got smaller lungs. So I was told by a coroner that they died of smoke inhalation of the effect of the flames. Doesn't make it any better for me, because you get these nightmares where you're thinking, what state did they look like? And I was warned not to view them, and I didn't choose to, because I didn't want that in my head for the rest of my life, because I want to remember my children as beautiful babies of mine that were full of life and full of joy. And I've viewed dead people before in family, and sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But for children, I don't think that's something that you can do. Some people might be able to.
And I've had a very open conversation with somebody else that's been through a similar traumatic event, and that their last memory is of that family member burning, and
Mm.
and they can't get that memory out. It's like almost that's how that person's remembered, because it's the last image they have of them, and it's not something I can even begin to
No,
process or even imagine. And
no.
it's horrific.
It is. It is. It's. I would class it as the worst thing to ever happen to anybody, because you bring children into your life to educate them so that they learn and they enjoy their childhood and they grow to be an adult and then possibly produce children of their own. And I feel massively robbed because that's never going to happen. And it's not just that, there's all these different milestones that they're never going to hit. And I've got family members, I've got friends with similar age children. And to start with, it was really difficult to be around children because I would get jealous. I would not want to be around kids because I just thought, mine aren't here. Why are you here? And mine aren't. You know, it's not a case of they should be, mine shouldn't. It was, just massive jealousy. And I'd go in a supermarket and hear, like, say, a parent really having a go at a young child, and that would upset me because I'd think, you don't deserve to be a parent because you're not behaving the way you should when you're teaching
Not
children.
grateful in that moment and taking
Exactly,
things for granted. And
yeah, very true. And it's taught a lot of people around me because it's been a massive ripple effect, and they've changed a lot of things in their lives with their children to be more grateful for every single day that they have, and even fire safety, you know. And there was a troll once that said, oh, did your children not get taught fire safety? Of course they did. They get trained in school as well. They get trained in, you know, they have drills at nursery. It's, again, another odd assumption and judgment, but they do start to fly over my head now. But getting back to the hospital,
what was the diagnosis in the hospital then?
For me,
Yeah, what was? I know they said all sorts of things to you, which
they did.
Clearly you've defied the odds, because they said you're never going to walk again, I believe.
Yeah. I was dying the first week. They gave me 2 blood transfusions and they couldn't stop the internal bleeding because I'd shattered so many bones, and they were both my heel bones, my ankles, trying to remember now, my pelvis, my sacrum, my spine in 4 places, right hip socket, 12th rib, then I had a lung contusion because of the 12th rib, sternum, right wrist, these 3 fingers and on my toes. Toes and fingers didn't bother me. It was the massive bones of them shattering. It wasn't just little breaks. It was a complete smash. Because of the height of it, you know, I could have died just even landing. I could have landed on my back and smacked my head and that would have been it, or paralysed from the neck down. I don't know. Something was looking after me. But being spiritual, I do understand that it wasn't my time to go at all. So I was brought back because there's a lot of things I still need to do.
Were you spiritual leading up to this, or is it something that's come into your life more so now?
I would say more so now. I was before, but because I've had 2 near-death experiences, you find that a lot of things start to open up that were possibly closed before. My third eye is massively open now. I freak people out. I'll be around somebody, I'm like, who's that person? Like, I'll name them and they're like, how do you know that? I went, no, just get it. It's weird. But yeah, it was massively traumatizing, even for a surgeon to come to me and go, you're never going to walk, Jade. And then another one come in. And then I had 5 of them for different areas of my body. And they just said that they're under no circumstance are you ever going to walk. You know, we deal with trauma every day, which I understand because they're in a profession where they are trained. They're very highly skilled. They do what they can to mend you back together, because I am bolted all over the place with metal. But the only thing they left for me, they said, we're not going to touch you back, because they wanted to put like a big metal cage around me. And I said, I don't really want that in my spine. Is there an alternative? They said, well, we can allow it to try and heal on its own, but it will be obviously quite mashed, but we can see if that works. I said, I'd rather that, because I don't want to intervene when my spine wasn't great before that. Because 18 months before, I had a rare back condition called quadricranial syndrome. And that is where your lumbar 4 and 5, right at the bottom of your spine, slips and then perforates your spinal cord. Luckily, I got mine just before it was about to go all the way through, because my MRI was like that, bent. It was just about to go. So I had an operation to shave that off, and then it slipped slightly again 3 months later, but it didn't go to the spinal cord, but it's given me a tear inside. So I've always suffered with pain in my back. And that's why they looked at it and thought, we don't really want to mess any more in there. So I'm laying there in bed, paralysed from the waist down, thinking, what is life going to look like for me now? Because I didn't want to live. I couldn't move anywhere, but I was looking every single day to see if I could reach something to kill myself with. Because for me, not having my children physically here was too traumatizing for me to want to live, because I would give my life for them always. And I felt it was very unfair that it's happened the other way around and they're gone. So yeah, it was very, very hard. And I spoke to a psychologist about it because my mother was obviously worried about the way I was feeling. I was very adamant. I was like, I just want to die. I don't want to be here. Quite frank. And I spoke to this psychologist, and she would dip in and out every so often just to check in with me. But the source of like unity there was actually a chaplain that came to me every single day. Now, I'm not religious. I come from a Jewish background. We don't practice the religion whatsoever. But we did have a little joke where I did say that, I don't believe in all of that, but I do believe there is a universe and there's a higher source, but not biblical things or in other religions. But when this chaplain first came in, I thought, oh my God, this is it, isn't it? He's obviously come to read my last rites. And I'm laying there surrounded by my entire family, nieces, nephews even. And I'm thinking, I'm going to die, aren't I? I'm really going to die. And I said, I'm not going to die. I shouted, I'm not going to die today. Fuck off. So he did find it funny afterwards, but I'm sure he gets all sorts. But I think it was the pain relief that was given to me, because whenever I have had morphine in the past for operations, it makes me a bit delirious, and also feel like what I say is funny. It's really, really odd. I don't know whether anybody else feels like that. But that was the little joke. After that week, my family then were not allowed to visit me because it was COVID. And the whole of Adam Brooks was shut down, completely locked down, no visitors, literally for anybody. So I feel so sorry for everyone that was in that hospital, but also their families that weren't able to see their loved ones. And I had another breakdown, and I said, I can't cope. I can't be in a room on my own without anybody. So they had a big meeting and they allowed one person for me. And that was really hard to pick, because it was either going to be my partner that I had at the time or my mother, even though we've always had a bit of an odd relationship. So he said, look, have your mother, because you'll never hear the end of it, because he knew what my mother was like. And having her for 3 weeks out of the 7 that I was there was actually really lovely, because I felt like I had a mum again without the drinking, because she wasn't drinking. And we shared the grief. We cried a lot. We even laughed at one point, but that was something to do with the constipation that I had because of all the medication. But it was nice to have her with me as a support. But after that, it didn't really stay because of her drinking. But I was very thankful, really thankful for her for being there.
How much different do you think it would have been if you'd had to done that on your own?
Massively different. I would have attempted to try and kill myself, I think. I probably would have just tried to drag myself off the bed and grabbed a wire or something. I would have done something. I know I would. Looking
back now, and it's just a reflection I've had, that the fact that if we look at how the universe has pulled this all together, that because it was so traumatic for you, the fact that you couldn't actually move means that something was putting you in that position to prevent you from going and potentially taking your own life, so that you could heal physically at the same time as you're healing emotionally, so that when you've come out the other side and you're able to move and control your body, that you've actually moved out of that headspace. Yeah, I do agree. I really do agree, because even people that come into your life are for different reasons, aren't they? They're for lessons, and whatever that lesson might be, it might be negative or positive. But there's also blessings all around us that if you, I would say, wake up more to be more grateful for every single day that passes, more positive things start to come your way, don't they?
Yeah, it was a massively lonely time for me. But I then started to argue with these consultants because they kept saying, no, Jade, you're never going to walk, Jade. And in my head, I'm thinking, no, what if there is a chance, you know? What if there's something that I can do that is going to make this outcome better? So a friend of mine said, have you ever heard of Joe Dr. Dispenser? And I said, so I know the name, but then she said, Google him properly, Jade, because his back is very similar to what yours is. So I Googled him, and then I remember about the accident that he had, and he broke his back in 6 places, and how he mentally fixed it without having medical intervention, and how he walked in 12 weeks, exactly the same as me. So I literally kept sending all this white light to every single part of my body. Then with my eyes closed, I would visualize the bones mending back together with the metal bits and stuff in them. And I would do that every single day repetitively, but also do a lot of meditation. Now, I didn't meditate before that. It just wasn't something that I ever brought into my life. But I did that every single day. I then started to learn about different resonance of frequency of Hertz music and what that can do to your body for different parts of your body. So when my mum would leave for the day, because she'd come at 8 o'clock in the morning and 8 at night every single day for those 3 weeks, I would then do that in the evenings when I had no interruptions. Because it's quite hard when you've got staff coming in and out when you're trying to do something. So majority it would be first thing when I woke up and first thing after my mum would leave. And I started to feel better within myself. My mind started to get better. Now, that was a really slow process, but I could see the changes, little changes every single day. And that spurred me on to keep doing it. And I thought, what have I got to lose? You know, I'm laying here, I can't move. If this works, then that's fantastic. So when I came out of hospital, I was then put in like a temporary accommodation for a couple of months because obviously I didn't want to go back to that house that was rented. And I spoke to the council, the local council, about what had happened and that we need some housing because my partner tried to look for other rentals, but there was a lot of floods in St. Neots at that time. And he was like 5th, 6th, 7th in the queue to view houses, and he just was having no hope. So we got put there. But then the more trauma started to happen because every Wednesday, because it was an over 55s complex, every Wednesday there was a fire alarm drill. So I'd hear the fire alarm. And that would send me into a massive panic. I would be hyperventilating, again, feel stuck because I can't move. He's trying to, you know, comfort me. And it was hard for him as well, because he saw a different side to what the house fire was. He saw a lot more flames. He saw trying to get up the stairs and try and find my son, and he couldn't get up the stairs to get to me and my daughter. So he suffered massively with PTSD. And there's that analogy, isn't there, where you've got to put your face mask on yourself before you help another person.
Yeah.
And when you're in a relationship, it's difficult to try and do that for each other, even though you want to. And it was massively difficult. And we subsequently broke up 3 years later. Yeah, it was really hard for him. And he got backlash even from my mother because I couldn't have my children's funeral until 3 months later. Now, the reason why it took that long was I wasn't in a fit state. I couldn't even sit up. I didn't want to be on a stretcher to go to my own children's funeral. So when this happened, because it's still COVID, I was only allowed 20 people. I've got a massive family. And when you've got a big list of names and you're looking at who can and who can't go, it's an extremely difficult situation to be put in. Now, everybody was brilliant, you know, and they understood the situation, but it's still hard for me. And he chose to give up a space because he wasn't in our lives for very long. But my family have been there all the time. My friends have been there for years. You know, some of my friends we've known each other since we were tiny. And my mother thought that was odd, but that's just the way she thinks. And it was very difficult. I remember that day very clearly. He was just completely zoned out because I couldn't deal with it. Now, I'm quite a private person, and when I cry, I do it alone. I don't like to cry in front of people because I know it's going to upset other people, but sometimes it does happen. And now I do understand not to stop that, because what you're doing is suppressing all your emotions down. And there's another analogy of this, it's a psychological thing where you've got a fizzy bottle and you keep shaking it, you keep shaking it, and you keep shaking it, and that is just going to burst at one point. But if you keep
Makes
shaking
sense.
it and not dealing with those emotions, that's what's going to happen. And it's been a big learning curve for me to get in touch with my emotions properly and allow that space for me to cry, to scream maybe sometimes. And I find sleeping is a massive healing coping mechanism for me. I've done it since a child. That works for me. But it's also about looking at healthy alternatives, isn't it? Because I could have quite easily gone down the route of alcohol and drugs. Nothing that I do is going to bring my children back. It's not going to fix the situation. I've never had a problem with drugs or alcohol, so it's not something I would have gone to, but I know people that do. And some people have a
Again, do you
crutch
feel that
and,
because you're in the hospital and you weren't able to leave because of your injuries, do you feel again that those choices were taken away from you, and that potentially other people that might have gone through horrific things and they are able to make that choice the day after or the week after, and it's so painful that that's the reason why other people maybe in your position would have turned to drink, drugs, and other you see that yourself?
Yeah, I do. But being a prison officer for 8.5 years previously, you are surrounded by so many different walks of lives, and you get to learn what their lives have been like and how they've got into the situations that they've got in. And a lot of it is really, really sad.
Trauma always
Yeah,
starts
of
with
course it
trauma.
is. It does. And I used to say to him, look, you've chosen this path. Unfortunately, I could have quite easily gone down that path, and I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, but I can show you how you can get away from that and not be the revolving door for the rest of your life. And some people will be, unfortunately, but there are so many people that have come out of there, learnt, completely gone away from whatever situation they were in, or people or environments, and thrived. I'm in touch with a lady that used to be in prison, and I helped her massively along with a few other prison officers. And she did say to me, "You saved my life, Jade." And that was really touching for me, because I just thought, I'm just doing my job. Even though I do take time to listen to people, sometimes officers don't do that. And it is a hard job, and you haven't got a lot of time sometimes, and it all depends on what's happening around you. But if you have got that time, spend it wisely. And that's what I tried to do, because I understood a lot of the traumas that they had experienced. Even though you can't share a lot because there's a lot of confidentiality that comes around that, I did understand and could feel their pain. I've always been a really empathetic person and quite sensitive, even though I might come across as very bold and quite hard in exterior. I'm not. I'm like soft jelly inside.
But looking back at your service in the prison, how much more grateful are you to yourself for having that empathy towards others looking back now? Because it would be so easy at the time, and other officers may get sucked into his hostility and almost like, because there is that risk to you in the prison that it might change the way you're acting whilst you're there as a preservation thing. But to look back and know that you made a difference to people and that you showed respect to them, I imagine is a very nice feeling to have when you look back on it.
It is, yeah. And I always used to say to the prisoners, you've got my respect, you can only but lose it. I'm giving that to you. If you lose it, then you know that what the consequences will be. And that's not a threat.
And is that regardless
it's
of what they've done as well?
do. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult, because certain convictions of what they've done are very difficult, and it doesn't sit well with me.
No.
Which would be child sex offenders. That's very hard to try and leave from your head. But they've been sentenced, they've been punished for that, to be in prison. Why should you punish them further? That's not for us to do. We can't play God there,
No. You've got a job to do, haven't you?
Yeah, and my opinions and judgments stay at the door. I then put my work out. I don't. You cannot be selective of who you treat differently, because if that's the case, you shouldn't be in a job like that. Yeah, it was difficult, really difficult.
Yeah. Did you go home sometimes from work and worry about people taking their own lives and stuff? People you knew were having a bit of a tough time, and
Yeah.
Did that play on your mind a lot?
It did, yeah. The first time I saw a female, because Peterborough was a male and female prison, so I got the experience of working with female prisoners and also male prisoners. We had a very high percentage rate of self-harm and possible suicide with females. The first time a woman cut herself in front of me, I sort of stood there in a bit of a daze and I panicked and I thought, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? And she's got a razor blade in her hand and she's literally, and it's going everywhere. And then you sort of set into what you were trained to do. You know, you call for help. You've got a radio. It's a private prison then. I think it still is now. So we didn't have truncheons or anything like that. We just had a radio, but we were taught control and restraint training, and I did get the help. But then that night I had nightmares because of it, because I was playing it in my head thinking, what if she'd have died? What if, you know, I just don't, I can't really get to grips with what I've just seen and experienced. I was only 21 as well when I joined the prison service, so I was still quite young.
That's very young.
But it is, and I'd had a lot of life experience, obviously, but I'd never seen this sort of self-harm. But the thing is, the more you see it, the more numb you become. But it's the only way you're able to cope. It's not that you're numb about the emotions that they're feeling. It's the numbness of that you can't let what you're seeing affect you, because then it's going to affect everything in your work. And you then
Makes
get a
sense.
sixth sense. Yeah. And you might understand, you then sometimes get a sixth sense of humour, because that's another way of being able to cope with the extremities that you deal with daily.
Definitely.
And you never know what's going to happen. No two days are the same. You go in and you think, is it going to be an okay day today? Or am I going to, you know, get attacked? Or am I going to end up breaking up a fight? Is there somebody that's going to be off the head on drugs? And it is a lot. I was pleased to come out of that service after 8.5 years, because I don't think I could have coped much longer, really.
If you're going on a healing journey yourself, but you're in an environment that involves
toxic.
being exposed to trauma, then it's very difficult to continue to heal yourself properly without being triggered or without something else coming along and you're adding to that jar of trauma.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And at one point there was what they call pathways. So each pathway would be, say, about accommodation, or it would be about education. And there were like platforms for prisoners to help them before they get released, so that they've got skills and they might have a home to go to. And then there was 2 new ones that were added, and that was domestic abuse and also sex workers. So I was put as the lead for that. And I remember sitting in an office with no computer or anything. I'm thinking, how am I going to build this up? So I then thought, right, what can I do? So eventually, when I got a computer, I was still working on wings still. I then started contacting loads of different agencies, and then they started coming into the prison and helping prisoners. I would then go out and do meetings, council meetings. There was loads of things that I did. And then you start to get audited. So then I'm getting into a panic, because this is a massive new thing for every prison that was there. But I was proud of doing that. But also it did then trigger me, because I'm then around a lot of domestic abuse situations where all these prisoners are telling me their stories, and I'm then reliving other things in my brain that I've tried to block out, and they're resurfacing. It's like a can of worms that just literally opened. I felt like I was having a bit of a breakdown. I was living with one of my friends, and we went out one night. I heavily drank, and then I just lost it when I got home. I didn't know what to do. And I knew then alcohol was not the answer here, because it's a depressant. It makes you feel worse. But at the time I was just trying to block it. And I know a lot of people do that. And it's about learning, isn't it? About yourself massively, and accepting things as well.
That's a very difficult thing to do. I think a lot of people want that, but don't know where to start. I assume now how long have you not been drinking for?
I mean, I'll have the odd glass of wine, but that is very, very rarely, because of the spiritual work that I do, because it's a low vibrational thing, alcohol. I'm trying to remember the last time I drank. I don't know.
No.
Probably a year ago. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I took the decision to stop drinking in April. Just came out of nowhere, really. There was no real reason for it other than I'd been on holiday, and I'd had, as you do on holiday, and as we've always done, you'd have a few drinks in the evening. And I just noticed this massive dip when I returned, and I just didn't feel good at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I could put my finger on it quite clearly because it was the only thing that I'd done differently. So I just made that decision right at that moment. That's it. I'm done with it, and I've not looked back. There's been a few occasions where it's been very tempting to have a drink, but that's the test. That's the challenge. And I think now that I'm on this journey where I'm always looking at ways to be better and do better, then when I come up against those hurdles, if I could really do with a drink tonight, or if I go on like a day out with the lads, or to a wedding or a night out or something, and it's so tempting, and there's no real reason not to, other than that little battle I'm now having with myself, that I continue to win, which is good.
Yes.
But at the same time, I don't want to have that thing inside where, say, if I want the drink that much because it's just appropriate at the time, like, then just do that as well. It's like this weird thing where I don't know what the right thing is, because I don't want to punish myself if there's no real reason not to. But it's a bit of a case of, well, now that I've done it for almost 6 months, I don't want to work.
Yeah, it's massive discipline, isn't it? And you have actually just reminded me, and I do remember the last time I had a drink, and it was at a wedding recently. But
it's hard not to at a wedding. Very hard not to, because you're surrounded by people you don't really know. But you might be at a table, and because I had a speech to do as well, because I was best man at this wedding, and someone put a bottle of red wine on the table, and I thought that would be so useful right now, just to take the edge off, because I was about to go up and do this speech for my mate.
Yeah, it does give you confidence.
Definitely.
Alcohol, it does. Yeah, there's a fine line, isn't there, where you pass that. But yeah, I've never, since that time that I've said about when I was younger, when I was doing it to blot things out, after that, I looked at alcohol differently. It wasn't to get drunk. I then was able to enjoy maybe a glass of wine with a meal if I went out, for instance. And that's where I stopped, Doing all the work that I do now, I don't need it. It makes you feel crap if you drink too much. It's not nice. It dehydrates you. It messes with everything in your body, doesn't it? And it's a poison at the end of the day.
I think if you're able to find your pleasures and your joy from life, from doing the things that we know are the actual real good things, like being outside in nature and connecting with the right people and helping others and all these kind of things. Like
it's a natural high.
Alcohol just quite quickly, it falls down the list of things to do to make you feel better when you know there's all these other things.
Yeah. Totally agree. It's it's absolute madness, isn't it?
When did your business start, and what was the process there of creating Merkaba?
Yeah, so that...
Have I pronounced that right?
Merkaba, yeah. Obviously, I had that cleaning business prior, so I had to shut that down when the fire happened, because I just wasn't in a mental fit state to even manage 5 women that I had working for me. So because my physical recovery was so concentrated, I was in, I would say, I've walked after 12 weeks, but I've even missed that, haven't I? So when I was in that temporary accommodation thing, this physio came to me and she said, would you like to try and stand on a Zimmer frame? So she brought this Zimmer frame, because then I was allowed to weight bear. So I tried my hardest, and it was really difficult because I had no muscles at all. They'd completely wasted away. All I had was just my upper arm strength, which I would go around the bed on my elbows, because you find ways to move when other parts of your body don't. So I managed to get up, and she said, do you want to try and walk? And I thought, and I just remember looking down at my feet, because I was wearing like these big Airwalker things, which I had for 7 months because of the massive trauma to my heels and ankles. And I put my right foot forward, thinking, right, I've done that. I moved my left leg, done that. And I literally just kept moving with the Zimmer frame. And then in one go, I did 10 meters, because I was that adamant and zoned in that I was able to do it. And I had face ache, massive face ache, because my smile was massive, because that was the biggest achievement that I wanted to do. And then I started to believe in myself even more. Yeah, and then I started doing it every single day, just going up and down that little hallway, just keep doing it for months. And I then started to look at other things, can I have people that can come and do like Reiki healing on me? So I had 2 people that I used to go to, but I also combined it with magnetic therapy. And it was a company called MBST, and it was in Stamford at the time because they're franchises, and it's originally from Germany. And these machines, the only way I can describe them are a bit like MRI machines without the hood. They're just like a hard bed. And I'm really grateful because one of my friends put me in touch with this company and they said they'd really love to help me. We want to do it free of charge. So I went every single day for 10 days. I think it was either an hour or 2 hours laying on this bed. And the different beds did different things. So this was for cell renewal and also for treating my bones that were shattered. And that massively improved the speed of my recovery, I would say, as well as that and Reiki. So I didn't work for like 2.5 years. And that was really hard because I've never been out of work. I have always worked doing something. So being at home, having to rely on somebody else was difficult for me because I've always been very independent. And I thought, what can I do? What can I do to help my life? So I opened Facebook up and this advert literally was there straight away, and it was advertising angelic Reiki practitioners. And I thought, I don't really know much about Reiki, but I don't know what angelic Reiki is. Is this completely massively different? So I messaged this lady and she was actually local to where I was as well, which I thought that is another massive sign. Everything is divine timing in my life and everybody's life for different reasons. So I went to go and see her and I spoke to her for about 4 hours. Beautiful lady inside and out. I felt so comfortable with her. So I agreed to book onto this course, but I didn't want to just do the course because I wanted to learn more. So she did like little mini courses on what the main archangels are, what angels do for you, how to connect with them, how to ground, how to protect. There's loads of different things that go into it. And I did that. But when I did the practitioner's course, it was deja vu moments all over again. It was really weird because I knew what she was about to say. I knew what she was about to demonstrate. So after a while, I was like, you're about to do this. She's like, how do you know that? I said, because I think I've been in before. I know I've done this. And it's like a soul recognition about something that you have learned possibly in a past life that you've brought over to this current life. And I also knew as a young child that this was my last earthly experience here. And I didn't understand what that meant, but I deep down knew. It's really hard to explain. So I did the practitioner's course. It was very intensive. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I didn't start practicing right away because I was quite nervous because I thought, am I going to get it wrong? Looking at the manual, and I started to practice on friends first, and they had a lovely experience. And that's when I started to then put some of my psychic gifts to work, because when I do healing on somebody, I might see colours, I might see it might be an animal, it could be their spirit animal, it could be past lives, it could be names of people. I've even seen some of their loved ones stood right in front of me and I'm like, hello, who are you? But telepathically, like speaking, it's odd, whilst they're laying on a bed and none the wiser. And I love it because not only is that healing helping that person, but I'm actually receiving healing as well. So nice. I get this question a lot, what is the difference between traditional Reiki and angelic Reiki? It's still the same. However, we are what I'd call like a channel, conduit, vessel for angels and archangels to move through your physical body and your soul and aura, which for people that don't understand an aura, it's your physical, it's your invisible, like protective layer around your body, which can show colours. And I can see at the moment yours is yellow because you're on a white wall. So I can teach people to do that as well. And it's quite easy to do. Where am I going? I've forgotten what I was going to say now. Auras. Yeah. So you are taught the different frequencies of the different archangels because they're all set at different ones. And when you get attuned very highly to the kingdom of light, you've got to be really high to meet them because they're, I would say, the most high vibrational beings. Also, I say to people, when I call a specific angel in, it's for a specific task. Archangel Michael is for protection and courage. Archangel Sandalphon would be for grounding. You've got Archangel Raphael for healing parts of the body. And I say, like, if you've got a leak in your home, you call a plumber, don't you? You don't have an electrician come to fix that leak. And it's the same for archangels. They're all set at different specific tasks.
Is there one for the fear of change?
Yeah.
As in, what would the one that would like fit that? Because I'm just thinking out loud, really, and kind of where, like, if I was to look at kind of what's inside me, and what's holding me back at the moment, and what emotion is unhelpful. It feels like I'm approaching this clear crossroad in my life where I need to fully step away from old habits and old thoughts and old ways of being into this new life fully. But it's that fear of, well, what about this? And I keep making excuses, and it's difficult, but I feel like I could really benefit from. And I believe fully in all these practices. So it's looking at something I could do practically, spiritually, emotionally, to help me work through those emotions that are holding me back.
Yes, and it does help. It's massively helped me. You know, it's opened up my mind to think differently. I mean, I'm always going to have that immense grief for my children, but I'm comfortable, which is probably not the right word, with where they are, because that was their life journey. And that was a lesson for them to just be in my presence for however long that was. I mean, Isaac was 3 years old and Sienna was 7 when they passed away, but they chose that path. I also chose the path of child loss. And I speak to friends and other people that always ask about what a life path. Now, for somebody that's spiritual, they will understand you have many, many lives. It can be thousands. And every time you come back, you learn different things. And for a new soul to experience what I have in my life, they wouldn't want to come back. That would be just it. No, I'm not having that again. So the actual more trauma and crap that happens in your life, you're further along in ascension because you're an older soul. And there's also numerology that comes into this. And that's what clarified my belief of the last life. I'm life path number 9, very old soul. I also did a exercise with your Akashic records, and that's all about karmic debts and what you haven't dealt with and what you need to now. And it's all done on your actual birth name with your middle name, if you've got any. And the letters are certain numbers. And this exercise was done when I did a psychic development course with a brilliant psychic medium. She's just amazing. And she said, hands up if anybody's got no numbers left. So I put my hand up because I was like, well, have I got any numbers? What's different? She went, you're on your last life. So that was another confirmation for me. But I've seen different mediums that have said the exact same thing. And I go with a massive poker face. I don't say anything. And they just come out with all this information. Now, I know there's a lot of charlatans, because there is, but there is in every single profession that you do. And I've had it with me where I had a lady that came to me because she wanted to test me to see if I went to a specific part of her body. And that was her gallbladder. Sometimes I can see things within somebody's body, but I don't always get it. It's just a knowing where to go. And I felt the need to go right where her gallbladder was, near enough for the entire hour that I was doing the healing for. And afterwards she said, why did you go there? I said, because you really needed healing there. She went, I know, because I had my gallbladder out 2 weeks ago. I wanted to test you. Wow. So I didn't mind that, because I know there's going to be people that are going to be skeptical. However, I am a product of it massively working. You know, I've gone from not being able to walk, being told I'm never able to do that, to now being able to walk. Still hurts. You know, I've got parts of my body that do ache constantly, but I know there's different tools to help with that are natural, instead of shoving loads of pills down my throat. In the beginning, I was taking 60 tablets a day, and some of them are basically pharmaceutical heroin, oxycodone, high doses of that, and the big liquid bottles. I'm down to, from what I counted the other day, 12 tablets now, but they're ones that I can't get off just yet because of the really bad nerve pain that I get in my right leg. It's just constant pins and needles all the time, really, really bad. And it's freezing cold all the time. So this weather changing, my body starts to ache even more. I really should be in a hot country, which would be really, really nice. But because of the sun's so healing. Whenever I go on holiday, which is always these spiritual retreats I go to, I feel so much better when I'm in the sun. I'm in nature all the time.
Definitely.
We're outside, aren't we? We're enjoying life. Whereas when we're at home, you might go to your car and go shopping, or you might see friends. You're confined to a home, aren't you?
Yeah.
Surrounded by Wi-Fi that interrupts your body. There's a lot of things that can harm you, but there's a lot of other alternatives that can help. Like I have shungite all around the house. I have a shungite pyramid next to my Wi-Fi box. I don't like to have my phone in my bedroom when I sleep. I like to play Hertz music, but I've got actually a thing. I said to my friend last night, she really needs to buy one. It doesn't use Bluetooth or anything, but it plays different Hertz music. So you've got no interruptions when you're asleep, because that can affect your dreams, your sleep, your sleep hygiene. Yeah. It's just
Well,
knowing
that's why that
what you
word,
can do.
looking at the word next to you underneath your emblem and holistic it's very much that all encompassing, like everything you can do, all of the different practices, all the things you can add together. If you do any single one of them on their own, they may not be effective.
Yeah.
If you start stacking these things up and also removing the things that have a negative impact,
Yeah.
I think that's when over time you really do see the difference, and you're living proof of that.
Yeah, you do. And it's why it's called complementary therapy. There's all sorts of holistic ones that all complement each other. I've tried acupuncture. That is fantastic. That was really good for the
Definitely, I've done it
migraines
too,
I
yeah.
had. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I need to find somebody actually local to here.
Yeah, well, there was something that we've both connected through as well and I saw you put on a post earlier to say that you're going to be going and helping Andy Steele out with
Yes.
an event that he's running.
Yeah.
And Andy is one of the guys that I connected with at the festival.
Yeah.
And I went to his talk, and I went to the talk on the practice that he's a therapist for, the emotional freedom technique with tapping.
Yeah.
And again, I have taken that away as one of the main takeaways from that festival for my anxiety and for other issues in my body, that I can tap now. And it's sometimes you have to be discreet with it, because if you're doing it, obviously people are like, what's that bloke doing? But you don't have, I don't know, I'm quite comfortable really. I just think, like, so what, people can think what they want, but it's so beneficial. And it really,
it is.
the first time I did it at the event where they talked us through the benefits of the tapping, and then we were all as the spectator crowd, started doing it, and instantly I felt calm. Felt like this other person had their arm around me, and it was beautiful. And he's a great guy.
It is. It's absolutely fantastic, because it's your body's stress response, isn't it? That you're then calming down. I can't remember the guy actually, because Instagram's great, isn't it, for different holistic quick reels of things. And there was one where he taps here, and I tried it, and instantly I was like, it was like a weight of been lifted off my shoulders, and I instantly felt calm.
Absolutely.
Now, somebody might reach for a drink and they might feel that effect, but then there's negative effects after that. Tapping has got no. It's the
same kind of thing.
Effects.
I kind of compare it to that exact same thing you're talking about there, where you get home from a day at work, you're like, that was stressful. Can of beer, open it, because you can have exactly the same release of cortisol.
Yes.
But rather than blocking it, you're working your way through it. And because the whole point of the tapping is that whilst you're doing the tapping, you're thinking about the exact thing that's causing the anxiety. And you're even doing that self-talk whilst you're doing it, around just repetitively talking to yourself that you're going to be okay, that whatever it is you're worrying about isn't that bad. And you're thinking about the worst case scenario. And as long as you're comfortable with that, you can work you all the way back into reality and to rational thoughts whilst you're tapping on the meridians. All of a sudden, you're back in the room.
Yeah, and every emotion is temporary, isn't it? It's not always constant. So allowing yourself to feel that, but also help yourself at the same time, you're acknowledging it, aren't you? You're not dismissing it. Like some people go, oh no, let's just put that in a box away, and then it resurfaces again. It makes it worse. But yeah, I love tapping. It's something that I think everybody should do. Yeah, it really is. And a similar one is called the flash technique, which is similar to EMDR therapy, which I did 7 months of.
I've done that as well.
Still say to my therapist now, that saved my life. It really did, because I was still very suicidal. Everything was a trigger, a sound, a smell. If I even went out, children are everywhere, and then, loving families, and I turn the TV on for just some sort of normality, and most TV films have got fire in them. It's not until something happens to you that then it's like looking at, like say if I bought a red car, a certain make, you then start seeing that same make everywhere, don't you? So it's the same when you have a trauma, because it's so concentrated and you don't know how to get out of it. But that therapy, I can't stress enough, is fantastic for any sort of trauma, because
Absolutely.
it rewires your brain, doesn't it, to stop being in fight or flight and to stop having you keep reliving everything all the time. Of course, it's never going to go away, but you know that you can deal with the thoughts or visions that you might get every now and again. Because I used to have nightmares all the time. I used to be scared to go to sleep. So I thought, what's the point in me being here if this is what I'm going to have to deal with daily? And unfortunately, because of COVID, the NHS didn't give me any therapy for 18 months because I was on a really long list of other people waiting. But I found this lady and I went privately, and I'm glad I did, because she knows I wouldn't. I was really frank. I said, if this doesn't work, I will kill myself. And this is something I needed to try, because if I didn't try, then what's the point? It was
So
hard.
how many sessions did it take for you for the EMDR to take effect?
I did 1 hour every single week for 7 months. So I would say probably about 4 months into it, because there was so much to have to deal with. You had to do it in really bite-sized chunks of the trauma, but then other traumas started to surface in from my childhood that I had to deal with, that all then coincided with that. But I actually felt the physical pain of when I had to relive of me jumping, and I actually felt like I was paralysed. It was the most bizarre physical behaviour, but she did warn me that certain things might happen in your body, but just allow it, just go with it and flow with it. And I had this.
When you were there reliving it, were you doing that in the third person, or were you doing it from above, or were you doing it in person?
It was slightly a third person, but also I was still there. It was like I was looking at myself, but then I was in my body. It was a really weird experience. But I then started chattering my teeth. When you're really cold and go, I did that for probably about 10 minutes. I couldn't stop it. And she went, just allow it, Jade. This is your body releasing all these suppressed emotions that you've had to try and survive. And then it started to get less and less and less when I had these moments. But even now, sometimes if I get really overwhelmed, my teeth start to chatter, and I understand it and acknowledge it, and not be like, oh, I can't feel like this. But yeah, I absolutely love that therapy.
Yeah, sounds like you've got such a high level of awareness of emotions and triggers and how to work through it in its own way each time they arise.
Yeah, because I've been through so much. It's not just this massive part of my life that I've lost. It's everything that I've dealt with as a child, adolescent, and adulthood. And it's about helping other people, because not everybody knows where to turn. I am really approachable. People message me going, "Can you give me a tip for this?" Or, "I need a bit of help with this." I have no problems with that whatsoever, and I can then signpost them to different people if that's something else that they need, and to try. And bereaved families as well, I've helped a lot with them, because I know what it feels like, and it's a club no one wants to be in. But for somebody to sit there and listen to them without feeling like they're being judged, or it's always difficult to speak to somebody else about it, because they can't imagine it. And I wouldn't want to wish that they could imagine the feelings and the grief that you have daily. But it is different when you've got people that are in the same scenario as such. It's about building each other up.
It does make all the difference. And I can speak from my own experience that when I go and have my therapy through Rock to Recovery, that the guy sat in the chair coaching me and helping me to work through some of the traumas I've experienced through my occupation, that I know that he was sat in the same chair as me previously. And it's just so useful to know that they fully understand and resonate. And I'm not saying that that's anywhere near the level of trauma that you've suffered with, but I can understand how useful it is to have the belief that that person understands what you're going through.
Yeah.
So let's finish on, and I was trying to think of how to kind of finish this off really, but I think if you were to give, say if there's people listening, and as sad as it is, people listening that have just gone through something horrific, whether it's loss, bereavement, or suffered with a life-changing injury. And there's someone local that has recently suffered a horrendous accident on holiday, and his life will never be the same again.
Yeah.
And the whole community are kind of pulling together to support the family. And he's been told he's not going to walk again. So it's for anyone that's been given that news that they're not going to walk again, like having given that news but defied the odds, like what advice would you have to them right at the start?
Don't ever give up. There are possibilities. There's always a possibility with every situation. And if I chose to accept that, I'd either not be here or I'd be bedridden and in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. And that is something that I didn't want, and I wanted to fight. And it is about having that inner fight. But sometimes when you're in that situation, you are very vulnerable. But if anybody, like you say, knows of anybody, they can always come to me about it. But don't ever give up, because there are, the possibilities are endless, that you shouldn't put limitations on yourself, because that is all that you're going to get if you do that. If you look at the box on an outside perspective, that there is things that you can do. But yeah, just try and find, which is difficult, that strength to keep going on and keep carrying on, because life is
about
precious.
The small wins as well.
It is, yeah, and celebrating them. It really is, because I was really modest for ages, and people are like, Jade, look how far. Look what you've done to get to this point, and look at what you're doing now to help people. That is massive. And winning awards and things like that, I'm very humble, and it is amazing to have that recognition. It really is. And then have the opportunity to speak on podcasts about it and go and do speaking events as well. I absolutely love it, because this is what I'm meant to be doing, and this is what I feel is right. And this is the path I'm meant to go down.
Definitely.
Really is.
And I could sense that, and that's why we've connected, and that's why I came to your talk at the event, because it's a story I wanted to hear. Yeah. And then when I heard it, it was definitely, I wanted to get you on the podcast to delve even deeper and have that personal interaction as well. It was really nice as well at the event to meet your partner.
Yes.
Seems like a really supportive top guy. And we had this
really
moment where, because I didn't know he was your partner at the time, but he was sat opposite me. And when you were talking, we made eye contact, and I knew in that moment that he was your partner. And I just gave him like a nod of, I don't know, like a nod of respect almost. And then we had a conversation after, and we connected as well, because we had quite a lot of stuff in common, and he just seemed like such a supportive and just good guy.
He is. He's a lovely, lovely guy. And I'm grateful to have him in my life, because I've had such really awful relationships, and it was odd to be in a relationship with him that's healthy, because I've never really experienced that. So that was alien. But yeah.
But that's a good sign of the work you've done on yourself to break the
because
cycle.
I'm attracting that.
Is now you've attracted actually a good man.
Yes. Yeah. Which I've known for 18 years. He was in the prison service as well. Yeah. Yeah. Lovely.
It's been so nice talking to you this evening.
And you, Ollie. Thank you.
No, thanks so much for your time and for giving hope to others. I think is the bottom line with your stories is there is always hope.
Yeah, there really is. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Files